Okay, so life can sometimes be so busy and stressful that it feels like we don't have any room to slow down. When we live at the edge of our capacities, it creates a lot of stress and can distract us from the most important things in our lives. It can even affect our relationship with God. So, let's take a breath and discover some sacred space.
Today, we are wrapping up our series called Sacred Space. At the heart of this series is the following definition. Sacred space is the gap between living a life of peace and a life of pressure. While they may differ for each one of us, when it comes to the pace of life, every one of us has limits. There is a point where every one of us hits the red line of life, that place where our engines are turning too fast, and if not revved down, we will burn out. As we near those limits, our stress levels go up. We lose patience. We find ourselves frustrated by every red light or traffic backup. We get worried about every bill we have to pay. When we have no sacred space, our lives suffer, our relationship suffers, and our faith suffers. Every one of us needs some space in life. Every one of us needs a buffer between our current pace and that place where we are just simply at our limit, where we cannot take any more and our lives begin to fall apart. So far, we have talked about what that looks like when we reach our limit in terms of overstressed schedules and overspent budgets. Today, we are going to talk about the importance of sacred space when it comes to our relationships. I've touched on this throughout our previous messages in this series, but it is so important that it deserves some intentional reflection on its own. I want to begin by telling you a story from my past. It happened when I was a freshman in high school. It's a story I am not proud of, but it taught me one of the most valuable lessons I've learned in life. As part of our college preparation requirements, it was highly encouraged that we take 2 years of a foreign language. I chose Spanish. At first, the course was going pretty well. I was making good grades and had a decent grasp on the material. But as the year progressed, I got a little bored with the class and got increasingly busy with other courses and school activities. It was then that I gave in to a temptation brought before me by a classmate. He had broken the code for knowing what was going to be on tests and how to pass them without doing any studying. I knew it wasn't right. I knew I shouldn't do it. I thought I will only do it this once and then never again. Well, one test led to another and another and another. To be honest, I really didn't think much about it after the first few. I mean, what could it harm? Everyone else was doing it, and it sure freed up a lot of time and energy. Well, freshman year came and went, and before I knew it, I was a sophomore, and I was now in Spanish too. As is often the case in such a class, the first part of the year was spent in review. There were quizzes, tests, and oral practice sessions, all designed to refresh in our minds the language we had learned during the previous year. The problem was that I had not learned the language, and the format of the test was completely different, so we were not able to do what we did the year before to get through them. Needless to say, Spanish 2 was not a great experience for me. And no matter how hard I worked, and I worked twice as hard in that class as any other, I just could not catch up, and my grades reflected it. I passed, but barely. That class is the lowest grade on my high school transcript. Again, I am not proud of that story. It does not reflect the kind of person I was raised to be. It was a bad decision, and there is no justification for it. But it also taught me a valuable lesson, one that you may have been taught as well. Cheaters never win. You may get away with it for a while, but it will come back to haunt you. It may get you ahead for a moment, but there will come a time when cheating will put you so far behind that you will never catch up. And I know it feels like there are some exceptions to this rule, that some people seem to get away with it. That says more about them than the system. And as Christ followers, we know the value of honesty and integrity. And so I hold to the lesson I learned in high school. Cheaters never win. After that experience in my Spanish class, I never cheated or tried to get away with any kind of shortcut in my schoolwork. What I've learned since then is that there are other areas of life where we do try to take shortcuts, hoping we can game the system, but that in the end rarely work out. One of the places we often try to do that is in our relationships. As a young couple, my wife and I received some excellent counsel from some mentors about what it would take for our relationship to not only survive, but to grow even stronger as the years passed. At the heart of that advice was to make sure that we always made each other our number one priority. That no matter how important our professions and the work we do might be, our relationship would never thrive and might not even survive if we didn't make sure to make each other our priority. They said the same would be true if we ever started a family, something that would come with additional challenges given the kinds of schedules we would have in ministry. After all, despite all the jokes, we do work more than one day a week. Now, for the most part, Carrie and I have done pretty well balancing the demands of our jobs with our focus on our family. But there have been seasons when our work schedules have made that balance hard. And sometimes the demands of our jobs have gotten the best of us. I know that we are not alone. According to Gallup polling, the average full-time work week is now at 47 hours a week. That is 1 hour short of 6 8-hour work days. Now, most of us have to work. And whether we work within or outside the home, we were created to work and to be productive. God designed us to be stewards of our lives, our communities, and our world. But here's the thing. When we are working 47, 57, even 67 hours a week, we cannot possibly be putting the kind of attention into our relationships that we should. While we sometimes fool ourselves into believing that we can make up any lost time when things at work slow down, the truth is we can't. Because that time is lost. We can't get it back, and there is little, if any, chance we can make up for it. After all, you can't go back in time and catch your children's recital, their game, their concert, or their science fair. We can't go back in time and celebrate a birthday or an anniversary that we missed. When our work schedules keep us from focusing on our relationships, we are not trading time that we can make up someday. We are cheating others of our time. We are cheating them out of the one thing that no one else can give them, the one thing that is uniquely ours to give, and that is us. Now, there are other people who can do my job here at this church. In fact, there are surely people who could do it better than I do. But no one else can be my children's father. I'm Carrie's only spouse. Those roles are uniquely mine, and they come with responsibilities that cannot simply be traded away. When those responsibilities are not met, I am cheating my family of our time together. And cheaters never win. Just as cheating my way through Spanish 1 left me unable to keep up in Spanish 2, if I cheat my children or my spouse of my time now, in time, I will not be able to speak their language, to understand their lives, to connect with them. And this isn't just about time. It's about headspace and heart space. There are times I've got so much going on up here that is related to my work and ministry that even when I am with my family, and I'm not really with them. It's even happened while we were on vacation. I wonder, have you ever been in that kind of space? If I don't have sacred space in my head and in my heart, even though I sit in the same room with the people I love, I can be miles away from them. There is something important that we need to understand and remember. Even if we find ways to be efficient with our schedules and efficient with our finances, if we try to be efficient with our relationships, they will fail. You cannot be efficient when it comes to relationship. You cannot take shortcuts and still expect them to grow. You cannot cheat to get ahead when it comes to spending time with those you love. Now, I think one of the things that makes this so hard is that in other areas of life, we can see the results of our efforts pretty quickly. We can see immediate progress, and that progress is rewarding. But when it comes to family, when it comes to friends, when it comes to relationships, it can be hard to see progress in that same way, to mark it in that same way. Because relationship building takes time. And the greatest results of our investment may not be seen for a long time. And that is hard for me sometimes. I'm a hardworking, go-getter kind of person. I am nothing if not driven, and I love to create goals and work toward them. I love to think and plan and to see those plans come to life. No matter the game, I'm in it to win it. At one point in our marriage, I said to Carrie, I feel like we need some goals for our family. It just feels like we're on a treadmill, every day the same, and we're getting nowhere. Where do we want our family to be in the future? In response, she said something I will never forget. When do we stop working for some future goal and start living the life we have right now? What more are we chasing? Now, those words stopped me cold. What if in trying so hard to give our family a better future, we end up cheating them in the present? There's a passage in Scripture that speaks so well to what I'm talking about. It is found at the beginning of what are called household codes. These codes are the rules that God has set in place to make sure that our families are living into what God hopes for us. While some of these rules have been misused and misinterpreted, there is still wisdom to be found within them. That is certainly true when it comes to the first and most foundational rule for all families and relationships. Be subject to one another out of reverence for Christ. For my family to be the very best that it can be, for me to fulfill the roles for which I am uniquely qualified, the very first thing I must do is to be subject to submit to my family. Their needs come first. My relationship with them comes first. They come before any other obligation that I may have, including work or any other responsibility that may come along. Again, I'm not saying don't work. I'm not saying don't succeed. I'm not saying don't strive for excellence in everything that you do. All those things are important, and living into them can benefit ourselves and those we love. But when it comes to God's hope for our lives, we are called first to submit to our families. We are called to fill the unique roles that only we can fill: parent, spouse, child, grandparent, friend, etc. Whatever it is, that's our responsibility and role. Here's the last thing I want to say about creating sacred space in our lives. We will never be happier than the joy and satisfaction we can find in relationships. No matter how much money we have, no matter how powerful we are, no matter what we do or don't do with our time and with our lives, so much of our happiness depends on the quality of our relationships with those that matter most. As we leave this series behind, my hope is that we will carry the wisdom we have gained through the journey and make some sacred space in every aspect of our lives. In so doing, we will be better able to make the most out of our one chance at this thing called life. Amen.